of you in here, you appreciate a very well-manicured lawn? How many of you keep those hands high, keep them high, keep them high. How many of you who have your hand held high, you appreciate a well-manicured lawn? How many of you actually have a well-manicured lawn? Oh, about half of that maybe. How many of you, when you drive around and you see somebody's grass and it looks good, like it makes you smile in your heart, like, yeah, somebody cares. Somebody cares. Now, I love a well-manicured lawn. I love seeing when a lawn is of equal height everywhere. I love when it is crisply edged. I love seeing the lines, seeing the rows after it's freshly mowed. And if you want to get fancy, you want to be like Major League Baseball fields and you do like the diagonal lines, oh, it's even better. I will be the first to admit that I suffer from grass envy. I can see other people's lawns and be like, oh man, that looks good. Now, they may be paying somebody to do it. And if they do, that's fine. But it looks good. I want you to imagine that you are suffering grass envy and you are driving through your neighborhood wherever you live and you're seeing somebody's lawn and it looks fabulous. They got the lines, it's edged, it's perfect. There's not even grass clippings around. Like, it is impeccable. And it's somehow every season of the year, they still have it up to snuff. Now, that's what I'm talking about, right? It looks good in the winter. It looks good in the fall. It looks good in the summer, in the spring, everything in between. Like, they take care of it. Well, one day you go on a walk, and you are when I go on a walk, I look at all the houses, and I'm like, oh, I like that color combination. I like what they're doing. You know, they got their flowers. They got this. They got that. And you have the thought, oh, I want to walk by that house that has that amazing lawn. Maybe you think you're going to somehow get inspired to actually take care of your own lawn. You go and you walk by and you're like, man, it looks so good. And you get closer and you're like, huh. Then you get really close. You're like, you gotta be kidding me. It's AstroTurf. I've been having grass envy for months on end, looking at people's lawn, and come to find out it's just fake. We all can have envy in our life. Sometimes we all want something that someone else has, or we all want just something, an object, a possession, a material thing. We all can struggle with being content in our life, being satisfied in our life. So what does it take to be happy? Because that's what content means. Content means being satisfied in your life. Here's the big idea today. It doesn't take money to be happy. It takes godliness and contentment. It doesn't take money to be happy. It takes godliness and contentment. We're going to be in 1 Timothy chapter 6. I'm going to give you some information, some background information. The letter of Timothy, okay, it's written to Timothy. Paul is the one who is writing the letter. If you don't know, the Apostle Paul, after Jesus had resurrected, he has an encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus, completely changes his life. He dedicates his life to Jesus and spreading the gospel everywhere. He's planting churches left and right, and he is working with people. He's created a network of communities and pastors to try to raise up leaders to take care of these things. And one of his leaders was Timothy. He was his protege. He was pouring into this person. Timothy represented the city of Ephesus. And he was writing to these different areas, and he was making sure, hey, they're following the right things. They're still living a life of integrity, because this was the early church. This was establishing the very foundation of the Christian movement that we would know it. And what was happening was, in these early churches, they were having some problems. Any of you ever had problems? Well, they were having some problems. And unfortunately, some of the leadership in those churches we're also having problems and we're not practicing biblical things. In fact, the beginning of chapter 6 deals with an issue where the teachers, the preachers of the time, they were just basically preaching and teaching to try to accumulate wealth for themselves. They were just trying to manipulate people. So Paul is writing to Timothy in this particular passage. He is contrasting, saying, hey, don't be like that. You don't need that stuff to actually be happy. So we're going to pick up the story here, 1 Timothy 6, verse 6. But here's the first point. Godliness plus contentment makes you eternally rich. Godliness plus contentment makes you eternally rich. Verse 6. Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. Now, how many of you wish that you had great wealth? But wealth isn't always about money. It's not always about zeros. It's about godliness and contentment. So what does it mean to be godly? It's to have a reverence and respect to God. It means that you are following the truths of God, the things that are in the Word of God. It means that you are living a life of integrity. It means you are worshiping the Lord with your heart, your mind, your soul, your body, your strength. Everything that you are worshiping the Lord with. It means that you do what the good book says. Godliness in its simplest form is this: living a life that's pleasing to the Lord. Godliness is this: aligning our hearts and our actions with His will. So Paul tells Timothy, godliness is important, but not just godliness. He says contentment as well. Contentment is this: it's being satisfied in life. It's being satisfied because the needs of your life have been met. Now, contentment is not complacency. Complacency is just kind of where you gave up in life and it's how it's always going to be. I don't long for anything else. I'm just going to be lazy. I'm just going to sit back and be comfortable right here. That is not what contentment is. Contentment is knowing that there is a deep inner satisfaction within you because you know your worth, your joy, and your peace are not tied up in material things or people. It's tied up in the Lord. That's where true contentment comes from. It's understanding that Christ is enough. He's more than enough. Now, here's the problem for most people. We suffer from an issue, and it's called when and then thinking. When and then thinking. What does that mean? When I get that fancy car, when I get that new F-150 Raptor, when I get that new Ferrari or that new Corvette, or I get that new Escalade, or I get that new, then I'll be happy. When I get that new house, when it's got that quartz countertop, it's got the bathroom, it's got the layout, it's the open design, it's this or that. When I get that house, I will finally be happy. When I get the promotion, I'll finally be happy. When I get to that certain number in my bank account, then I'll be happy. When I get to buy the latest Jordan shoes, then I'm going to be happy. When I buy the latest power tool, then I'm going to be happy. When I buy the latest designer purse, then I'm going to be happy. It's the thinking of, when I have it, then I will be content. When I have it, then I will be content. And here's the reality. If you are not enough without it, you will never be enough with it. If you're not enough without it, you will never be enough with it. We have to change our perspective. We have to change our perspective from a temporary and earthly perspective to an eternal perspective. What really matters in light of eternity. Now listen, the world that you and I live in, it's not helping us. It's not helping us in this regard. We live in a consumer culture that makes us feel bad about ourselves. It really does. They tell you all kinds of things. If you just have this eye cream, you will look 20 years younger. If you just take this pill, if you just buy this new car, you know, the kind that has the heated seats and it has the cool seats and it can launch you into space at the same time. It can do your dishes. It can fold your laundry. Like if you just have that. And if you don't, you're worthless. I mean, you think that advertisement is meant to help your life. No, they just want your money. Consumer culture doesn't really help us. And listen, if money was all that it took to be happy, then there should be a whole lot happier people in the world. Because there are people who are millionaires, billionaires, celebrity, fame, fortune. There are professional athletes that you and I would look at the things that they possess, the material things, and be like, man, they got it all. But they're not happy. Because they don't have godliness and they don't have contentment in their life. And typically, when you catch up with these people later in life, they realize they've been missing something their entire life. After they've gone through drug addictions, after they've gone through multiple divorces, after they've gone through affairs, after they've gone through this, after they've lost everything, they realize that they were missing something. The next point is this: you can't take it with you. Turn to your neighbor and say, you can't take it with you. Verse 7. After all, we brought nothing in with us when we came into the world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave. You brought nothing with us when we came into the world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave. How many of you would say that you pack light when you go on a trip? How many of you are lying through your teeth? That's my wife over there. Now, how many of you pack for any and every occasion? You are ready for whatever is to come. Now, it's amazing, like with our kids, they are still in the like pack light stage of life, but it's getting a little more now for them. But it'd be like, hey, we're going to go to grandma and grandpa's house. We're going to stay overnight. And it's like, they got a backpack and you're like, you fit what you need in that? Like, that's awesome. And it's like, hey, this is your mom's suitcase for one night. For one night. I love you. I'm not trying to pick on you. Here's what happens and I will also confess, as I am getting older, I am packing more too. How many of you have like certain things that you need, even if you're going to somebody else's house or you're going to a hotel, like, I gotta have my own blanket, or I gotta have my own pillow, or I gotta have my own, I gotta have my sound machine, I gotta have stuff, right? Like, we don't pack light anymore because we need our stuff. We want our stuff. I want you to imagine that you were headed to a fancy hotel. And one of those fancy hotels that has the revolving door, right? We don't got anything like that in Tehachapi, let's be real, okay? It's got the fancy revolving door. And you are looking at it, you are trying to time it just right so that you could make it in and okay. And then you get stuck. You get stuck because you are trying to take too much stuff. And then it's like the whole thing is stopped. People are over there, they're stuck, and you're looking at them like, and then you're like, you're trying to like get it to move a little bit because you're bringing too much stuff. So why do we bring too much stuff in life? We bring too much stuff in life because our stuff makes us feel comfortable. Our stuff makes us feel secure. Our stuff makes us feel safe. Our stuff isn't going to make it to heaven. Back to the revolving door. Let's say on the other side, it's not the hotel lobby, it's heaven. And we're coming and we're like, wait, what about my Porsche? What about my ice maker? What about my purse? What about the stuff that I worked forever for? Like, what about all my materials, my possessions? What about and then it's not gonna fit. It's not gonna fit. Listen, you can spend your life trying to get stuff. And by the way, I'm not opposed to having stuff. I'm not opposed to having nice things. But do you have the nice things, or do the nice things have you? So you got to think about that. Here's what happens. We try to, one day when we are getting to the pearly gates and we're trying to be let in, and then you're trying to get in there and you're like, what about my 85-inch TV? What about my 401 bank account? What about my crypto account? What about my fancy designer this and that? And what about my power tools? What about my lawnmower? What about and I want to take it with me. You can't take it with you. When you die, you're going to do just exactly what everyone else who has died before you has done. You will go into heaven with nothing else but your soul. Job 1:21 says it like this: naked I came into the world, and naked I'm going out of the world. I brought nothing in, and I'm going to carry nothing out. So when we begin to think like that, when we begin to have an eternal perspective, it changes the way that we think. It changes the way that we live. It changes what we spend our money on, what we prioritize in our life. You see, no matter how much you accumulate, money, possessions, or achievements, those are temporary things. The next point is this: we need to count our blessings. We need to count our blessings. Verse 8, so if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. This letter here, it's advocating a life of simplicity. He doesn't say you need luxury, you need fame, you need abundance to be content. He's saying, are your basic needs being met? That's all it takes to be content. Oftentimes, we need to be reminded of how blessed we truly are. How blessed that we are to live in America. The things that we have here, even if you think you are poor and you are like, I'm not even poor, I can't afford the extra O and the R, I'm po. I don't have the O and the R, I am po. Well, let's count your blessings. If you have food and a roof over your head, you are wealthier than 75% of the world. That roof could be an apartment, a condo, a house, a cabin, whatever. You got a roof over your head. If you have any money saved in your account, anything, you are in the top 8% of the world. The world. If you have health today, you are blessed. There are 1 million people in this world that won't make it through the week today or this week. If you have health, you are blessed. There are 733 million people who are hungry today. 733 million people in the world who are hungry today, and we have more than enough food to feed them all. If you own a car, you are in the top 18% of the world. And you're like, you haven't seen my car. If it moves, only 18% of the world owns a car. Here's my favorite one. How many of you used a toilet today? If you used a toilet today, do you know that there are 2.3 billion who do not have a toilet or a clean, sanitized toilet to use today? 2.3 billion. Count your blessings. Now listen, if you've been into some other countries before, you ever done some missionary work, I've been in China, I've been in Mexico, I've been in Canada, I've been in Korea, different places, and I'm going to tell you, we are blessed. We are blessed. We need to count our blessings, and then not just our material blessings, our spiritual blessings. If we have a relationship with the Lord, that's the greatest blessing that you and I could ever have. Because if you have Jesus, you're going to heaven. When our hearts are aligned with God, we realize that true blessing doesn't come from the material. It comes from the spiritual. It comes from those things that are eternal. We need to learn to be grateful. We need to learn to be thankful. We need to learn to be content. The next point is this: don't fall into the trap. Verse 9. But people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. There are many in this world that they have pursued wealth, possession, material things at a very high cost. Such a high cost that they have ruined their health. They live in constant anxiety. They live with ulcers. They live with this. They're living with that. They have sacrificed their children. They have sacrificed their relationships with their spouse, their family members, their friends, all in the pursuit of more stuff, of more money. Verse 10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people craving money have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows. Now listen, it says the love of money. It doesn't say money is evil. Money is neither good nor bad. Money is money. It is what it is. It's how we use it. Or is it using us? The phrase love of money in Greek, it translates to an English word called avarice. Now, maybe I read that somewhere in my lifetime before, but I did not know what that meant. So I had to look that up. This is what avarice means. It means extreme greed for wealth or possessions. It's the lust of money. And again, it says the love of money, not money itself. Listen, I understand it takes money to live. I understand it takes money to buy food or have clothes or somewhere to sleep. I understand that it takes that. It's not saying money is bad. It's saying the lust of money is bad. Because what happens is people become enslaved to the pursuit of more. I need more. I need more stuff. I need fancier stuff. I need stuff for my stuff. And it says that it can be hard for those who are wealthy. Because if you're wealthy and you don't have the Lord in your life, if you're wealthy and you don't have godliness, it's really hard to not fall into a lot of bad things. It's really difficult. Now, there are some amazing people out there, millionaires, billionaires, who love the Lord with all their heart, and they have built incredible companies, and the Lord has blessed them, and they are using those things to bless other people. They are helping people. They're building churches. They're building orphanages. They're doing incredible things. They're a part of their community. So please don't hear me. Don't hear that. I'm not saying if you have money that something is wrong with you. I'm just saying don't let money have you. The last point is this: pursue a godly life. Pursue a godly life, because this is what happens. When people get consumed by pursuing money, they will leave their integrity behind. They'll leave their character behind. They will do shady deals. They will step into immoral things. And then once they start to get money, then that doesn't fill the void in their life. It doesn't fill that spiritual emptiness inside of them. So what do? They try to fill that void. They start getting into drugs. They start getting into prostitution. They start getting into different things to all try to fill that void that can only be filled by Jesus. Verse 11. But to you, Timothy, are a man of God. So run from all these evil things. Pursue righteousness and a godly life, along with faith, love, perseverance, and gentleness. Fight the good fight for the true faith. Hold tightly to the eternal life to which God has called you, which you have declared so well before so many witnesses. Now remember, I told you in the beginning of this that this was going against some teachers who had been basically manipulating people, trying to get money. And he's saying, Timothy, don't be like them. Don't do that. Fight the good fight. Distinguish yourself from those imposters. We need to distinguish ourselves. Listen, America is one of the most greedy nations on the planet. Are we as believers, are we a part of that greed? Or have we learned godliness and contentment equals great wealth? Paul tells Timothy to pursue righteousness, which is living rightly before God. Tells him to pursue faith, which is trusting him in every area of your life. To pursue love, which is acting with selflessness and grace. Perseverance, to be a person that doesn't quit, that is enduring. And gentleness, a person who shows compassion and kindness to others. He tells us to hold tightly to these things. The big idea is this: it doesn't take money to be happy. It takes godliness and contentment. You may be in here today and you may never be rich in the world's eyes, but you can be rich in the eyes of God. If you have a relationship with God, if you have contentment, which means you are living a life where you are grateful, you are rich. You may never have that vacation home by the beach that we all wish that we may have, or, go live on the hut on Bora Bora over the water or whatever it may be. You may never have that. But you have God, and that's worth a whole lot more. You see, all the money in the world can't buy peace. All the money in the world can't buy joy. That comes from a relationship with the Lord.